Wow. Wow, wow, wow. um, so going to Cuba with Hanan and seeing this movie for the first time changed my life. Um, so I'm gonna try not to cry, but I have tissue just in case. But I did not speak about what happened to me openly with the belly dance community ever. So she is really brave because it puts you in a very, very vulnerable position to speak about things that damaged you or hurt you in your life. So she is very strong, and I admire her to no end for doing that. And I was surprised when I saw the film because I didn't know what to expect. My trip to Cuba it was amazing. I did have some romanticism before I went, just a little bit. My family did not, they came before Castro. So I did not have people opposing me going. I did have people worried. They're, be careful, watch where you're going. But it was always a dream for me. My whole family, we ate the food, we listened to the music, spoke the languages, had the jokes. Everything about me came from this place. My father had some influence, but we weren't really, close to his family, and he's from Canada. So everything about Cuba was in me. So when I heard the opportunity through Tambalindalo, I jumped at it, and I actually cried. I was driving in the car with my husband, and I just started crying. He's like, what's going on? I was like, I think I can go to Cuba. And he understood, he understood how exciting it was for me at the thought. What she did there is amazing, and like you said, it's hard to see the impact of what she did through the film, because it is, when you see it in person, the people, the students that showed up for this, it was outstanding, and their love for her, in their kindness, and how excited they were to have the ability to do this. It was all inspiring. And I'm just, anyway, I'm super thankful. And I have a love for you in my heart that's very deep.
The focus, the perseverance, the bravery, the courage, the love, it's overwhelming. I remember when you first went to Cuba. Well, I remember when I first met you. And when you were getting ready to go to Cuba, and you talked to me after coming back. We were in touch a bit about also the difficulties that you were facing and the opposition of your family. I remember getting an offer to travel to Cuba and mentioning it to my father, and my father was never so silent. It was complete silence. And he said, no me parece bien. And I canceled everything. And I have felt so many emotions watching the film, Hanan. It's amazing. And I know that after the film, I think you need to do a sequel because I know that after the film, there's so much has happened. The work that you're doing for me is the most important work that anyone involved in dance could ever do. What you've tapped into and you've worked in slowly, calladita, there and there, steady. The joy, the information, the outlet that you're bringing to women in Cuba, and the fact that Gretel, she got it. You know, it was just meant to be, because what she's doing there is incredible, and the movement, the fusion, just it's amazing work. I love what you're doing. I respect it. I want to support it. I am so full of emotions, everything in the film, family, personal. How you found that you could heal yourself, and in turn heal everybody, and everybody is healing with the dance. And this for me is what the dance is about. This is what it is, and I love it, and I love you, and I have so much respect, and I think that it's so nice that you keep showing it, because I was so bummed out that I couldn't be here to see it when you first released it. So I can't even really speak, but I'm speaking. Amazing. Amazing.
Hanan, can I ask you something? Do you see that parallel? I see such a parallel to the Egyptian dancers throughout however many years in the history of the dance, and even in other countries as well, and how much they struggled, and how much they had to persevere, and how much, I mean, they are dismissed by their families, they're disowned by their families, they have this constant struggle, and I saw so much of that parallel in what you're going through and what you did in your work, and it just kind of brings it so full circle, I feel. But do you see that, or do you ever want to like address that? Or
Well, I do understand that parallel, and when I was in Egypt, it felt very familiar to me, and being in Morocco feels very familiar to me, I think for a different reason, but both Morocco and Egypt felt very in my bones and in my cells, like I feel when I'm in Cuba, even though I was born here. So I do see that, and I think that part of larger stories that I want to collaborate in telling is how this dance, where it comes from and what it means to people, and what it means to for all of us to have our dance, because we all have different stories and different barriers, and some of them are very geopolitical in nature, and some of them are very personal, you know, and in the household. So I do see that, and conversations like this help make that international connection. And that is, I think that's really important for the dance, and for what I'm trying to do with telling this Caribbean story, and just from a broader Caribbean perspective, and connect the Caribbean to North Africa. Like, that's a very specific intellectual motivation that I have. So thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I'm wondering if people have questions or other responses that they want to offer. We have some more time, and I'm sure that there's many comments in the audience, so I wanted to dedicate some time for that, please, sir. So the question, I'm going to repeat it, was in the moment in which you left and before you returned and Gretel has started a school, did she have any government barriers or government support? Was there funding, or what was the relationship of the government to her starting the school? Did I paraphrase that correctly? Okay.
Well, I would say that there was no government funding. So what Gretel and Cuban Soho, her company, needed or needs to perform publicly, as they do now and have gigs where they're paid, is to have a government agency represent them, like an agent. And so in all of the earlier years, and there's footage of us talking about this, they struggled to get that agent. So I believe that when I left, that hadn't happened yet. And in the years that I was gone, they got that empresa, which gives them the license to work in restaurants and perform publicly. So that they have. But in terms of starting their school, the government, as I've seen, supports culture. And so she has her school that has moved around. So you see these workshops in many different buildings. And so this school has moved around, and she is open and allowed to have her school, and it's her thing. So I have no connection to the government in any way.
Can you say a little bit more about why it was challenging to get the agent, the government agent, which is something that I think is interesting. And yeah, could you talk to more about that?
So part of what was hard for them to get that empresa is that for the cultural sector to have these empresas, it needs to be juried. So if you're a band, if you're a dance company, there's a jury who will evaluate, and the word is evaluate. And because Middle Eastern dance is not part of the national art school's trajectory, like folklore or modern or ballet, there really wasn't a jury that was available to evaluate the quality, the level of the work that they were doing. So that took much more legwork on their part, and we collaborated in terms of creating a library, creating sending academic texts that could aid in this process, letters of recommendation from myself, or writing scholarly things that could help frame what they were doing in the earlier years. And then they were able to do that, in those years that I was gone.
And regarding the students, do they pay to attend classes? And also, when they perform, where does that money go? Who keeps it?
So Gretel has a dance school, and Gretel's students, because there's been so many years, there are other generations of her students that became teachers and have their own schools and projects, and they all charge. And for example, Gretel, my understanding is that you pay like a monthly inscription, and that money goes to Gretel to support, she has both a school and a dance company. So all of those funds go directly to put food on her table, if you will, to support her as a dancer. And the dancers in Cuban Soho, and I'm assuming they're who I know, but the other dancers also get paid to perform, and that's money that they make through their performances. In all the years that I've gone, in all the workshops that I've given, and my collaborators, we don't charge anything to the Cuban dancers, so it's free of charge to them to attend anything that my project is involved in.
But does the empresa keep the money, any percentage, the government, when they perform?
That I don't know. That I'm not aware of. And I haven't heard that they do, but neither have I asked. So.
And it's not considered non-for-profit or anything like that?
Well, they're considered private, so there is, they're not a government-sponsored dance company, and there is part of the cultural sector, as I understand, and I'm not the expert, so Gretel would be the person to ask, there is a lot of entrepreneurial, private cultural projects that exist throughout the city, and my understanding is that Gretel's project is a private enterprise.
Are there other questions, comments? Yeah.
My husband's family is first generation.
So the question was about your partner being of first generation Lebanese Cuban and having a family experience of having been socially ostracized within Cuba in the 50s and 60s. And you're wondering about whether the environment is the same for Arab Cubans in the present.
Not necessarily Arab Cubans, but embracing the dance.
Oh, not necessarily Arab Cubans, but embracing the dance. And I'm gonna let you answer.
So, yeah, so the context of reception, as we say in academia, with this project has been very positive. And the Casa, so there's two institutions in Havana. There's the Unión Árabe, which has a lot of the registries of the migrations that came into Cuba, and the Casa de los Árabes. And both of these institutions emerged after the revolution, when the government was concentrating and kind of organizing a lot of the cultural sector. So there were many different clubs. My understanding is there were many different clubs from the different migratory groups that were separate, and then they were kind of consolidated into these two organizations. And La Casa de los Árabes, which used to be a mosque, but then a mosque went across the street, is now a museum, an NGO, and an academic NGO institution. was very open, and I have a lot of interviews with the director that was very supportive of Gretel's early beginnings. So the school started in the Casa de los Árabes when it was originally forming. And many things that I heard, and there's many cuts, and I have footage of people at the dance festivals and performances that are of different descents, ascendencias, as they say, Chinese, Afro, Spanish, from many different diasporas. They felt, or they articulated feeling very comforted by seeing the dance, because it's as if it's like turning on, you know, the Moors into Spain, into the island, and then this kind of transcultural voyage. So I heard many people speak to me anecdotally about the dance, you know, bringing back, like as Miriam said earlier, like bringing back these memories of like these kind of lost trajectories. So, and Gretel herself is of Lebanese descent, and many of the women in the project are, and then they are not. So the context of reception was very welcoming on all levels, institutionally and personally.
At the time you start your project, you were talking about Arab house. They don't help you the time you have your project? I said the time you start your project, you have Arabic house or something. Yeah, so casa, yeah, casa. So they don't help you on your project? You don't?
Have, yeah.
Oh, they
From the
did.
very beginning, they were very supportive. And part of the structure of the work, like I made the film and I'm this person, I'm like this character that comes in and out. Mm-hmm. But it was really about Gretel creating a structure for herself. So she is the person with these really strong relationships, and me being a part of it, you know, has different meanings and contexts in different spaces, and it's you know, it's something that we navigate. But really, it's Gretel articulating, you know, her vision for her project. And the Casa de los Árabes, the museum, was always very open because it's part of La Habana Vieja, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it's a place where the cultures of the world have a very large presence in La Habana Vieja. So this dance was welcomed as part of a global thread, if you will.
Now, you said they don't give them permission, whatever, to perform. But my understanding, they perform, correct? These dancers on different events. So I believe the government, it's more open now to this.
Well, so they do have a talent agency representing them, and so, like every other place, there are public spaces, there are private spaces, and so they are able to perform publicly and in different spaces, like legally. And
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So the question is there going to be a part 2 of the film? And how can people support the effort? I just also want to say Gretel, her mom, and her sister, who are in the film, are of Arab descent. They're of Lebanese ancestry. So that may also kind of help click for folks a few things. So I'm going to let you answer the question about the future.
the sequel. Okay. So one, I want to acknowledge Ms. Charlotte Goldberg, who is a donor and gives very ongoing contributions privately, but I want to acknowledge you publicly because it's a gift that you give to this project. And so there's no plans for a sequel of the film, but really I believe the sequel is the Havana Habibi Festival. And the Havana Habibi Festival is this beautiful, living, breathing monument to the people of Cuba, to all of our stories and to this dance that I love so much. And I think the reason I'm so verklempt today is that the Miami dance community is here and my friends are up here. But that's the sequel. And there's many different feelings about going to Cuba, which I 100% respect. And like I say, I'm not selling anything.
When's the next festival? What date?
The next festival is in June 2019. So following the website and joining our newsletter is how you'll find out about it. And so I want to honor everyone's position on Cuba, but just offer an intervention that is healing and bridging. And the Havana Habibi Festival, that is its mission and its purpose. And speaking of the website and the newsletter, I also want to thank Jean Blackwell-Font, who takes such great care of me, and Havana Habibi, who's here. And communicating, I think the art of communication around our dance and our mission is really important, and that's why we're here. And so she's part of that. Any other questions?
Oh, wow. The questions are coming up now. Yeah, Valerie.
I wanted to ask Virginia and Bojenka because you guys were flattering Hanan, and I want to know how does it feel the idea coming back to Cuba after watching the film?
I mean, I was born here, but my family is all from there. Actually, it's opened a floodgate of emotions for me, to be honest. Just because of my family's history and the Castro regime and just many things that affected my life, being from Cuban family and parents. Yeah, I think I would consider it, but mainly because for the dance and for what the dance can offer women and what it and the healing processes that it does for women. Because I've encountered it in my life as a teacher. I'm sure we all have. We've all encountered. I've encountered many different things, and for that, I think sometimes you have to cross. You have to cross that bridge. You have to get past. Like what you've done, like past all the pain and the hurt and the anger and all that, in order to give something back to a community, and then within that, you end up giving back to yourself, really.
I'm not opposed to going. I never have been opposed to going, but there's a sensitivity within my family that I would have to work out. But I want to go, and I want to take my son, but I'm going to wait until he's a little bit older.
Yes, in the back. Yeah.
First, I'd like to make a comment. I've never been your student.
The question was, has the film been shown in Cuba, given that there are some parts that the speaker felt might jeopardize the project?
So the film has been shown in Cuba 2 times as part of the festival. And the first time for those that were there, it was so terrifying to me. I became physically very ill. I became extremely ill because I was so afraid of what it would mean, what it would do, how people would feel. And it was received really beautifully. And the second time as well. And it takes so much trust from those students and their families. So part of and I'm going to use the word burden because there's really responsibility of putting people's lives, is how to tell a story that's balanced and how to anchor it in something that's really meaningful and bigger than all of us individually. And so the film has been seen in Cuba, and the people that are looking out for contexts that might be jeopardizing have seen it. And I also feel rather protected when I'm there by the students and their families, like I'm a part of their family. But it has been, and it's the project just gets bigger. So I think there's ability to be self-critical and to also welcome something.
I want to also say the first time the film was screened, some of the women who are children in the film were in the audience holding their own children with their moms, crying, watching themselves on film, sitting next to all of us, hugging and crying through the whole film. I mean, it was such an emotional experience. And I can't watch the film without crying because now I know them. And I feel all this love in my heart, like I'm close to these girls now. They're a part of my life. And so it's always overwhelming to re-witness and relive with them everything that has happened. I also wanted to say that this festival is a very different kind of quote-unquote belly dance event. Because it's not a festival as American belly dancers or American belly dance system understands festivals. There's a lot about it that is about intellectual development and training. There's a lot about it that is about development of artistry in absence of a commercial dance market, right? Because it's not capitalism. So that makes the priorities totally different. People are dancing for different reasons. People are not dancing for competitions. People are not training to be the highest paid, right? They're making money because they want to be artists and make a living, but it's a very different kind of pursuit. So those of us who have been going to teach there are very aware of this and are doing things very, very differently than the kinds of things that I've been a part of as a dancer in the United States that happen here. So we spend a lot of time talking. We spend a lot of time, learning about history context, but also learning about dance work from kind of artistic, theoretical, intellectual, and spiritual perspectives. The work in the film is not, the fact that it's a festival doesn't mean that the work has changed, right? Like we've respected the kind of frame that Hanan provided for all of us to do this. And also, there's always a kind of intersection between other movement, artistic communities. There's other kinds of dance that always come in. Because of the dance spaces around the city that we are in, there's always an intellectual community presence as well. There's always community organizations and feminist outreach community organizations that are a part of it, that we do movement work with, performance, co-developed performance with community. So it's not like we go and we work with like some dancers and then we leave and then dancers do stuff. Like the festival is a lot of people around the city, but it's not a lot of people who are dancers. It's a lot of Cuban people. And I think that that's something hard to explain because it's a different model that we don't have here. Yeah. The question was if men are coming into the picture to participate in the school or the dancing. I would say they're not dancers. They're not participating as dancers. They're participating as musicians. So we had a male musician who was also translating for some of the workshops. Like he translated a lot of my workshop, and he's also one of the musicians that you see in the film. And there's a multi-gender group of supporting musicians to the live performances that happen during the festival.
I have a question about music. Where do they get the oud and the santur? And who do they study from?
A lot of it is self-taught.
It wasn't the real oud.
So there are
What's that?
musicians from the international community that find them. There was a gentleman from Spain. So musicians and artists from the international community gravitate to this group, and they'll share, which you see some of those scenes in there. But a lot of it is self-taught. So in the early years, and Harmonic Motion is part of this that donated CDs, they study the music and it was self-taught. A lot of it is self-taught.
Do they use the microtones?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's all about more development that they're interested in. And a lot of fusion comes into those gaps, but they are, working to that end.
They are also now more actively using the internet, I think, for self-training and self-teaching. And the festival is a primary vehicle through which to bring additional resources and continue to grow the community. in terms of technical training and other kinds of resources, like bringing actual physical stuff with us every time we go, that kind of stuff. I also wanted to say something. The last festival, there were multiple musicians from Chile that were working with us, some of whom I remain in touch with, and I know that they've returned to Santiago. So I think that this flux of people who skill share is part of what it means to be a Cuban in Havana. Like, you have those experiences, right? Yeah. Two more questions. One right here. Sure. Yeah. So the question was with regards to the kind of global misperception of belly dance as objectifying of women versus its history of strategy and tactic for women's empowerment. And is that something that we talk about in the teaching? And yes, it is something that we talk about in the teaching. So I have in particular, and I know other faculty have done the same in the festival, which is to talk about that history without romanticizing it, and at the same time talk about the real challenges globally of patriarchy, including in the Middle East, and the challenges and in the United States, and ask them then to reflect, like, what are the challenges for you here in Cuba, which is a very political and dangerous question to ask, but I have asked it. So we do that work by providing the frame of, like, this is how this dance sits in these places in the world. This is what it was in the past. These are the current conditions of practice for many different kinds of people. It's classed, it's raised, and it's gendered in all of these ways. And these are then the things that we can do. What do you think? What can you do here? How can you use it? So we're always kind of framing that proposition to channel the work that they create in those directions. And it's not something that has to be pushed because they get it, and it's very clear to them, obviously, from the beginning. It's more thinking, like, how do you dance politics? How do you dance feminist politics? These are the questions that I ask them to think about. And, so how do you channel the frame, the rhetoric, the discourse of your practice? How do you advertise your classes? And one student, for example, has been in touch with me the last couple of months about writing a master's thesis about her project teaching girls. And she wanted to talk to me about these political questions, and I provided academic literature, and she understands some English, and interviewed a couple of the faculty. So we continue in that relationship and kind of building the tools for them to become independent in that kind of teaching as well. One more question. Yeah. The question is there a trans women community in Cuba interested in belly dance? And is the belly dance community welcoming of that trans community? I'm going to let Tiffany answer that question.
So there's a trans women community, and both Gretel and I have given workshops with this community. And it's an interesting question because for me, working with trans women is very important. And so this was an outreach, if you will, that I collaborated with Proyecto Palomas to build. And part of my work with Gretel in her school, so I don't know if it's something that came from Cuban Soho or Gretel's school specifically, but it's something that's very important to me. And everyone that I spoke to through Gretel's school was extremely welcoming, naturally welcoming, receptive. So I want to say yes, and I definitely want to anchor it in my own experience and my interest.
All right, I think that's it. That's all the time that we have. Thanks everybody so much for staying. Yeah. And thanks so much to this wonderful panel. Thank you all. If we could take a group shot of the panel, we're being asked to do photography.
Hi guys, if I can just ask